So, there's a very obvious intro I could give regarding this volume and my excitement for it. And obviously, that's something we'll get to with both the actual review and also this intro. But this review is absolutely coming out a little bit later than expected because I'm sure a lot of people were expecting this not too long after did the last live stream of essentially the live reading sessions, which, if you haven't seen, uh, we've been reading every single one of these chapters live. You can just find it on the channel in the live stream area, completely public, but not unlisted like the other stuff. It's over there. But this was probably expected shortly after the final one, or at least the update video where I clarified, hey, I finished up most of the Act 2 stuff for A Demon's Tale. Let me work on the cover and then we'll go from there. Obviously, I did work on the cover because at this point, that's already done and it's pretty much ready for Sunday, which also I'm going to make a video regarding Act 2 for Sunday. So you might see me wearing this shirt again, and it's not me reusing the shirt. It's just these two videos being recorded at the same time. Regardless of that, though, that should have been my only obstacle recently. But as I was doing the Act 2 cover and, getting everything I needed ready for what was to come, I was playing an RPG that I was having a blast with uh, earlier in the year, like way earlier, right? And I only sunk like an hour or two in originally, and I was thinking a whole lot more into it, right? Fairly simple, good fun, beautiful looking. I enjoyed it a lot. And then there was a certain game by the same company that a whole lot of people were playing recently, and I decided, you know what, fuck it, let me check it out. And I didn't even know it was by the same company. But I found out it was by the same company, and I went, huh, that's interesting. So I checked out their other game related to the RPG that I played, but like what the RPG is based on. And I'm having fun with that. But more so, the game that everybody's now playing that's by that same company that made that RPG, and the game that RPG is based on and everything. Yeah, that other one that they have that is absolutely one of their top grossing things. Uh, that one has definitely killed a lot of the time I've had in the week. I've still kept to what I've been doing, right? The Act 2 cover, all that. But I can see why so many people are playing that. That shit is really addictive. And I'm actually having a lot of fun with that. Regardless of that, though, holy shit, I'm sure this is the volume everybody's been waiting for in terms of my reviews and all that. Let's just fucking go. Before we begin, I would actually like to clarify something. I mentioned how there was live streams of essentially all, like reading every single one of these chapters. For the most part, I will probably remember a good deal of the plot developments and everything. However, I need to note this ahead of time. Usually, I'm especially good with these reviews for the most part if I have my notes. I don't have notes for this because we did this all live. And the nice part about that is my reactions to everything that happens is live, right? You get to see that in real time, genuine reactions, all that sort of stuff. It's great. But it does come with the issue of these reviews. These reviews might not have every single story detail in there and how, like, what I want to speak about, right? This has happened before in general. I'm just noting there is a chance that it's even worse now, right? Probably not too much worse, right? I'm saying even worse, and that makes it sound like it's absolutely horrible. It's probably just a smidge worse, but ideally, we don't want to have that smidge. It's kind of going to happen, but at the same time, we get the live streams in exchange. I think that's a fair trade, right? Anyways, proper review time. So we start off with the first chapter in a very similar way to a lot of like previous first chapter sort of scenarios we've had in the series, but I actually specifically like this one a whole lot because of how Tepe handles it essentially, right? Very simple, just like the rest. You know, here's what's happening with Petra's side of things. Here's what's happening with Felt's. Here's what's happening with Al's. But the most important part with this version of a here's where everybody is sort of chapter compared to previous versions is explicitly what he does to allude to what's happening, right? Because a majority of the time in this chapter, Zoda bugs are brought up, right? They are constantly, but it's more so on the felt side of things that they're brought up, but they're constantly mentioned throughout it. Not too much that you're too suspicious, but they're emphasized enough that you kind of sit there and go, huh, that's a weird detail to kind of really put some attention to, right? Like it gets you a little bit suspicious, but not too much, right? You just think, oh, you know what? Maybe this is usual sort of like Tepe pros sort of like world building in a sense. Like this area is very much infested with Zoda bugs and all that. But then you get to the very end of it, right? We finally get Al and Roy interacting and he unseals Roy properly. They make a whole pact and everything. So similar to the whole, deal that happened with Roswell. Roy does something wrong. There he goes, right? But interesting thing about it is the fact that they explicitly mention that where Roy is kind of sealed away from everything else. It's sealed away from the elements as to not allow for somebody to very easily, just get him and run out, right? But weirdly, Zoda bugs are entering that building. And that's immediately where Al notices something wrong. And even as the reader, you notice something wrong because it's like, wait a minute. Oh shit, that's why he was emphasizing them. And boom, right then and there, I wish I wasn't spoiled on this because my brother had actually seen a video on his feed that had it in the title. But right then and there, Amelia shows up, right? Because essentially the title was like related to like Al versus Amelia as a big thing, and I'm like, shit, I don't even know about that, right? But this is it, right? Amelia shows up. This was really fast, in my opinion. But some people might think I'm gonna make the same argument that I made with Arc 7, where I'm like, this was way too quick for Amelia to show up, and like it wasn't handled super well. No, I actually like this. This is the third volume, and yeah, Arc 7 was even later, but it's the third volume, and there is an actual reason behind her being here. There are proper explanations, and there are actual interactions we see after the fact of, oh yeah, this is what happened behind the scenes and why she's here now, right? Because Al's headed in a direction that leads closer to Amelia and her group, and of course, if Amelia is also traveling back to where he is, they meet up in the middle. It's that simple. And thus their fight commences, and it's a very fun back and forth where you can kind of clearly tell Amelia has the upper hand, but Al's doing a good job at putting up a fight. However, his dialogue, as always, is very interesting. It's always hard to pinpoint what the fuck exactly he is, or who he is, rather, right? Because I still don't think Tepe is going to go with the obvious thing that everybody always states of he's just Subaru and all this. And it's like, even if he is, I think we're going to go for something that's less obvious here, right? I think it's a little too expected if he's just outright Subaru and that's it, right? But still, it is interesting to see his lines of dialogue that kind of gives this implication that there's a whole lot more to him and Amelia and him and all these other characters that we know and everything. And in regards to Amelia, oh boy, so one of the things they reveal with this is that Felt talked to them shortly after what happened with Reinhardt and all that, right? Reinhardt fighting Al, all this shit going down, and Felt kind of speaks to them on the matter and has Otto and Amelia help out. Otto is upset with the whole situation going on, but so is Amelia, right? The title is literally just Amelia was enraged. And something I love about it is revealing that that rage, just slowly over the course of that conversation, it's not founded from this place of genuine hate or anything like that. There is anger for a different reason. And they explicitly say in the text that she wants to embrace Subaru. And I'm like, holy shit, she is like, it's happening again, right? I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly, but holy fuck, we really are developing even more on her feelings, and I love that. Which I guess we are approaching the end of the series more so in this regard of we're like 3/4 in, so there's not much longer left, but it is still really cool to always see this very snappy sort of development of Emilia's feelings. Love it. Absolutely love it. Always have with the previous arcs. Even when I had problems with stuff like 7, I still loved that that shit was there, right? It's really great. So seeing that interaction, beautiful. And then we get this fantastic fight to go with it. It's good. This chapter is really damn good, right? There was a lot to enjoy here. Fun action in terms of how it's written, and just that scene. I can't wait to see what she is like in like arc 10 and arc 11 and all that. Like, oh, 100%. I feel like it's obvious. I think we all expected it, but 100% arc 12 or whatever is going to just end in some way with her properly confessing her feelings, and that feels fitting, you know, seeing as arc 3 was where Subaru like properly confessed for the first time, right? I mean, he's mentioned stuff before and complimented her before, but there's that genuine confession there. I think it's fitting that something that's that arc but multiplied by 4, we get the proper, you know, second half of that. I think that's really nice. In a certain way, we have to thank arc 7 being split up for that. Kind of have to thank it for that. And oh boy, speaking of really good fights, we're not even at this one yet. Fucking Wilhelm versus Ye. He crashes through that building to save Felt and all that, and it's just like, dude, as soon as he gets in there, you immediately know Ye is fucked, right? Sure, she's a shinobi, right? She is essentially built around assassination and all this. She's not beating the fucking sword demon. Like, you know that reading it of just, there is no shot she wins, right? She can cut him up as much as she wants, you know, she does a literal, like, dancing spiderweb sort of thing. I love actually what they go into regarding it, of this, like, essentially they word it as a Sakura sort of, like, dance, but the way it's done is that she's spinning so much that it's kind of like causing the blood of the opponent, which is, you know, rapidly bleeding out from their body. Bleeding out's maybe not the best term to use for, oh, the blood leaving the body. It's very redundant, but you know what I mean. Blood just oozing out of the body in such a way and speed and all that, and like with the wind, that it just looks like a storm of Sakura like flying by. I do love the description of that. That is really fucking cool for an attack. It means nothing here. She's fighting Wilhelm. So Wilhelm does all that shit, and then part of her attack is, you know, setting it all on fire, right? Making that shit blazing. He cuts through it. Like, literally in his own words, I cut through it. And he just ends the fight with her then and there. That's it. And right as you think that that's all over, right, that's it, you know, Ye can barely do shit. I mean, she's hanging Felt now, but that's about it. You know, Wilhelm's about to jump up and save Felt properly, cut through the thread. And then you start to realize, at least me personally, I started to kind of realize, maybe there's a ploy here, right? Because sure, she can do that for Felt, but the problem is, that doesn't seem like the play. She wouldn't do something that's really stupid and easy to essentially work around, right? Especially for somebody like Wilhelm. Then Volcanica shows up, and you realize, oh, that was the play. Like, yeah, sure, Ye's in danger as well, and that's kind of an issue, but Felt is the big thing there. And Wilhelm still stops Volcanica. And then he gets into a fight. Like, I mean, I know it's Al in Volcanica, essentially, like Al's memories and all that, but he gets into a fight with the Divine Dragon. And you know what the fucking craziest part is? He almost wins. Heinkel has to essentially backstab him, like a cowardly kind of backstab him right then and there. Because both him and honestly, I would almost argue Volcanica himself, like Al, you know, they're just worried that this motherfucker, despite how old he is, could legitimately win. Right? It is insane. And you even get a chapter going over Heinkel and his character and the build up to this moment. And or rather these faults that Wilhelm has seen in him before, and now this fault he sees now where Heinkel had to just go through with this shit just to save his wife, right? This very cowardly attempt. It's rough. It is rough for Heinkel. You can tell he doesn't want to do this, but he's so fucking desperate now that it was bound to happen. And it's unfortunate. I do imagine he's going to get a proper redemption by the end of this arc, right? It's kind of the thing where I don't know about Al, right? I could see Al maybe getting some sort of redemption. I mean, they redeemed Roswell and all that, right? That motherfucker, definitely not the best of people in the series, but you know, Al is like a maybe. I could see them kind of seeing a better side of him, but also the potential that they don't, right? Heinkel, though, I think 100% will have a redemption sort of arc. He obviously will have repercussions for what's been done, but I do truly believe there's going to be a lot better for him by the end of this. And now, part 1 of holy shit, there's no way. My live reaction to this, so if I have a proper clip on my computer still, because these streams do take up a lot, but if I have a proper clip on my computer, I'll put it up here right now. Oh shit, okay, I see now. Thank you so much for explaining that. Oh fuck. Oh shit, now I'm curious, right? Oh shit. No fucking way. But holy shit. Okay, so we get the continuation of Al versus Amelia, and still very fun fight, but it's getting desperate to such a point that Al essentially realizes there's no shot of winning here, right? No matter what he tries, he can't fucking win, right? This is Amelia he's fighting. As much as it's like, oh, you know, there's all sorts of dangerous people in the world, Amelia is strong, right? Both physically and in terms of magic and all this. She is very skilled. He knows damn well this ain't gonna work out. So, he realizes there is one desperation sort of plan he could go with. One thing that he could use to his advantage here. And that's none other than Roy. Roy himself is his advantage. And at first I was curious on what the fuck the plan here was, right? I'm like, huh. You know, what's he gonna do, right? And then Roy starts regurgitating something. And for some reason, I didn't know what, right? I was reading through that and I'm like, huh, he's regurgitating. That's odd, right? But the thing I picked up on after it was pointed out that, well, it's, you know, gluttony. He's regurgitating something. What do you think that might be, right? As soon as that was pointed out, I thought about the events so far. I thought about the fact that Al was barely affected. Amelia was very affected, right? To the point that she was in tears. And I'm like, fuck you, no way. Right? I fully realized what that could have meant. And I'm like, no. They would not happen this early, right? Like, I'm cool if it does, but it would not be this early, right? Al leaves that fight. There's a giant, like, you know, hail of it's essentially meteors. It's really just rocks, but, you know, he conjured up that shit to occupy Amelia while he gets the fuck out of there. But this whole time, you know, she's crying out and telling him to, like, wait and everything. And I was so curious on what the fuck happened. And then I saw fan art on the next chapter, and I'm like, there's no shot it's that. Next chapter is very simple. They go over the details regarding Al's team and everything, and, you know, Heinkel and all that, like, everything that essentially went on, followed by Otto managing to, like, you know, jump in and kind of try and stop them and all that. Otto goes fucking nuts here, you know. We'll go into that a little bit more later, but yeah, Otto gets to be the stopping point for that chapter. And whew, I was just in a mood to read more. I couldn't, because I think at the time there wasn't more out. Either there was more out and I was just, you know, done for the night, or it hadn't been, there hadn't been more yet. I think it was the former, because I'm pretty sure I'd been streaming for a while at that point, so I was done, but I did want to read more. Actually, thinking about it, I think that was a separate stream for those two chapters. Still, regardless, I wanted to read a lot more. And then the most painful part came in the form of essentially like the following chapters and the fact that I still had to wait, right? So, Klein shows up. Now, I was a little bit worried because I'm not going to say Klein's the absolute worst character, but his trope is not fun. It should be obvious. It's not a fun trope at all. It is kind of gross and everything. But you know what? I'll give him credit. These chapters were good for him. There was a lot more to him as a character that I actually could enjoy here, in terms of how genuine he got and how essentially he had this almost self-loathing sort of moment where he felt like he wasn't actually going to be able to help out that much with everything going on, and Petra kind of had to reaffirm that to him. And then of course he brings up the idea of his authority. Now, I forgot he did have something related to an authority, right? I did kind of remember it, but I was like, oh shit, right. Yeah, he has that. Like, it was similar to Al, where I totally forgot about Al. I was like, oh yeah, right. Klein has that. But this is the first time he actually goes in depth about it. He mentions that this is the same shit that I believe Hector had. I'm pretty sure Hector was the correct name. I'm usually pretty damn good with ReZero names, but I don't fully remember. Me editing this would give me a thumbs up if I did. Hooray. Or boo. Which is unfortunate and true. But he brings up the fact that it's the same as him in terms of authority. So, first off, fucking insane news to hear, right? Because already that's like, okay, shit, so he has Hector's stuff, right? Like melancholy and all that. Okay. Interesting, right? He does bring up Pandora's stuff, like, you know, vanity and all that. So that's also interesting. And then he goes into the topics of those who can actually work well with the authority and those who can't, right? Those who mix well with it and those who kind of get corrupted by that sort of thing. I'm thinking of that one Twitter image that people love to fucking post. But he goes over that. Now, we've seen examples of that before. Satella has always been implied to essentially have that, right? Because it's the whole thing of that's what creates the Witch of Envy, is a bad affinity with that factor. And very easy to presume that Juice kind of had that sort of thing going on, right? Very easy to just kind of assume that, yeah, he put that shit into his body. It did not work out well, right? So, with that said, the interesting thing to note that he brings up is Hector and Pandora. Both of them were different prior to their factor. That is something he explicitly mentions, which fucking, it's giving me goosebumps right now. It gave me goosebumps to see that before. It's giving me goosebumps right now. That's fucking crazy, right? Because, like, listen, they're not our main villains. Echidna obviously falls into the main villain line, sort of thing. But they are relevant as villains, right? They are like these two head honcho sort of characters based on how much they've been built in this very intimidating way and kind of stringing things along, right? I mean, I guess Hector less so, but the fact that he showed up with that presence he had in Arc 4 in that flashback, very relevant, right? So, Pandora, who we've seen throughout the series doing all sorts of shit, and Hector, who we saw only in that one moment, but definitely had a presence about him. Both of them were different before, right? This implies that neither of them were the way they are now, right? This very, maybe not like to say that she wasn't kind before, but this overly kind Pandora who just does shit, right? Sometimes gets people killed, all this sort of stuff, sometimes strings things along so that it fits in a certain way into this, like, you know, whole gospel sort of ideal, right? The idea that she might not have even been like that before. Because I think a big thing that we know about, at least most, right, is like, for example, someone like Regulus. We learn more about Regulus and we kind of realize this guy's always been shit, right? Like, there has not been a moment of his life where he wasn't a piece of shit, right? But for Pandora, based on this info we have now, that's not the case. This implies that she was way different before. Now, I don't feel like we're going to learn about that for a while, right? I think the final few arcs is maybe where we'll learn about that. But that's a huge info dump to just hit us with out of nowhere. I love it, right? I'm not saying info dump in a, like, negative way. I am saying that as a positive. I love that. And now the whole thing with Klein's scenario is that, in a certain sense, in order to use his authority to their advantage, something has to be sacrificed, right? It's not a clear sort of definition as to the exact, you know, specifics of, like, you know, here's this, right? Like, this specific item or whatever it may be, but just something, right? Like, Odd Logna needs something in there. Not necessarily materialistic, but just something as a sacrifice, right? Something that can be done. Something I love about this, I'm using the word something a lot here, but what I love about this, actually, the whole thing with the authority, is Melee's interactions here. I thought at first, you know, she just thought it sounded weird, and the way her dialogue sounds like early on, you know, it makes it seem like she's being very, like, coy about it. I'm like, I don't know, the whole authority thing, it sounds a bit, like, risky and all that. And then, as it gets further, and Petra's like, no, yeah, you know what, I think this can work. Melee's like, hold on, no, wait, no, you need to understand. This is an authority we're talking about. That shit is not good. I know, right? The fact that she acknowledges it, like, it's obvious that she would, but the fact that she brings it up as this big, like, no, Petra, we don't treat a witch factor sort of thing, this authority bullshit, as something we use to our advantage, okay? I've had to deal with that stuff. I don't like that stuff. We're not doing that. You're not doing that. I'll do it, right? I went through it before. The one I went through was hellish, right? Surely this isn't nearly as bad, right? But, like, the fact that Melee has to bring up and warn Petra about it, of like, listen, I'm kind of familiar with this shit. I love that, right? I love that Tepe is constantly, he never outright says it, right? Other than the obvious side stories you can read. But the fact that he always hints at Melee's relationship with her mother, well, you know, quote unquote mother, of course, but, like, the fact that it's always hinted at, and it's like, if you don't know the side stories, it's just fun, you know, alluding to who it is. And obviously, if you do, it just leaves a smirk on your face And at the same time, you feel terrible for Melee because you know, yeah, yeah, she's had a lot of experience with that shit, and that is not fun, right? But Petra eventually does just go through with this. You know, she has her whole speech and everything, and I do love it a lot. And something gets sacrificed. The assumed thing, and like myself included in terms of assuming this, was just that she sacrificed any hope of having a relationship with Subaru, right? In a certain sense, not to be like, oh, you know, she didn't stand any chance, but she probably knew there was no shot, right? So as much as she wanted to be close to him and be the person by his side, she very likely knew it's not going to happen. I'll sacrifice that if it means we get to save him, right? Like similar sort of logic, I'd say, to Rem, where Rem understands, you know, she can't be Amelia, but if she can at least, you know, help Subaru out and get him to the point where he is happy, that's enough for her, right? Like that's something I enjoy about Rem's character, and of course I enjoy that about Petra's here, where it's this acknowledgement of if it at least helps him, that's what matters, right? So love that a lot. And of course, Klein gets to do his thing, right? Boom. We're instantly where we need to be, except all of a sudden some stuff is happening. But Petra isn't feeling the greatest. Melee's feeling a bit off, right? You know, but Petra, well, I think they're actually both equal in this regard. But both of them are not feeling too great, right? And we know that other characters, such as Amelia, were also not feeling too good way earlier, right, in terms of timing. But that's all right for now. You know, it's whatever. There's some odd reactions here and there, but that's okay. Maybe it's just the travel, right? It's obviously Klein's whole thing. He can help them all travel from one location to the next, whatever it might be. You know, it's probably just that. So they finally get to meet with Amelia again. You know, Old Man Rom is there. Oh, they all start speaking and all that. And then Klein teleports back one more time because he had to go get a few more people. One of them is Ram, which is exciting. You know, Ram gets to be in this arc. Oh boy. I was not expecting it here. I'm gonna be so blunt about this. Tepe is a mastermind for doing it here. Because I think what everybody expected was either at the start of an arc or the end of an arc was where it was going to happen. Nobody expected middle of arc 9, not even a chapter end, not even the end of the volume, right? 2 chapters before the end of the volume. There are 2 chapters that come after this. No one expected this. And he hits us with the absolute bomb of, hey guys, Rem's back. Not like arc 6 into arc 7 back. No. No. Like you know, the Rem you knew in arc 3 and arc 2 and all that. She's back. I brought her back. She's also a combination of arc 7 because she refers to Subaru as that person before correcting it to Subaru. I was so excited. If you've seen the video on the channel, I'll leave a card there with my live reaction. I was so fucking excited for this. Of course I was. Of course I was. The only thing I found unfortunate is that she went back to the maid outfit. It's fine. They're not in like the sand dunes anymore, so I guess it works out. I do really love that outfit though, but like other than that, this was a win. This was I was freaking the fuck out and I was so happy. I went to bed with a smile on my face for that whole week. I've been waiting so long for this, man. You know, there's absolutely been more people waiting even longer than I have, right? I started the series a bit later than, you know, some may have and all that. And I mean, going off of when she originally, you know, went to sleep essentially, that was back in like it was like 10 years ago or some shit, or like 12 years ago, some bullshit like that. I think it's actually 13 because I think it was when the series was coming out, was when like she fell asleep with us, when the third arc was made and everything. And here we are, like a decade, a little bit more than a decade later, and she is finally back properly, no amnesia, no bullshit. She's back and remembers everything. And holy shit, and again, he just did it on a random chapter. That's like fucking insane. I so badly wanted to make a custom thumbnail for this video. The problem is, I can't do that. I make a thumbnail like that, everybody knows what it's about, right? You don't even need to read the contents or be caught up with the series to know what the fuck I made a thumbnail for, right? That's the issue. But man, I wanted to. And fuck, I have just been so happy. I have not even changed my Twitter image since, right? Every now and then I change my Twitter image, for new stuff and all that sort of shit. I might do it soon because of Act 2. We'll see. But every now and then I kind of change my Twitter image and all that. I haven't since I read this. I know it hasn't been that long. It's only been about a month. I haven't though. I have not touched a damn thing. It is still that. It is still REM on multiple other platforms. I'm just fucking happy. I win. And the next chapter too is awesome. It's her going back to the mansion. Like we get to see where they're going. And it's Ram and Rem going back to the mansion, just going over some things. Here's Ryuzu and all the Ryuzu clones. Rem, of course, mistakes them for Sphinx and is a little on guard, and then is thrown off when she sees multiple of them. All of Regulus's wives are now maids at the mansion. Love it a lot, right? That they have a great appreciation for Amelia and all that. So it's fantastic to see them there. And then you get the scene of Rem going to her room and looking over things and seeing the like poems of love that she keeps on her shelf and everything, and her morning star that's there that Subaru cleans. It is impressive that Subaru can clean that thing. That thing is a massive metal ball that is insanely large with its spikes. The fact that that motherfucker can pick that thing up and clean it is impressive, right? I know he's decently well built, but like that's impressive, right? And she goes over to it, touches it, and as she touches it, that just so happens to be the very same moment that Roy regurgitates everything, and you get this very sweet. It's almost making me tear up here. I can feel that feeling in my nose, that type of feeling. I can feel it. That scene of just Rem hugging Rem because she feels awful, right? Everything's come flooding back, and Rem's realized, holy shit, I'm an idiot. Like I'm not calling her that, but I'm saying for herself, right? She is blaming herself for everything, and she's like, dude, my sister lost her memories. I didn't even fucking remember. I wasn't protecting her half the time. She was in a different fucking country, didn't have her memories. She was like, she had amnesia, all this bullshit, and I wasn't there, right? And she gets so pissed at herself, and it's such a beautiful scene. And Rem and Ram get transferred over thanks to Klein and all that. And of course, because Petra's mind is now also Subaru, or like Subaru's there rather. I don't remember if that actually was established on the previous volume, so I might be bringing this up out of nowhere. That's been happening this whole time in case I needed to clarify that at all. I don't think I did or I don't think I need to because I think it happened on the previous volume. I'm just saying, just in case it didn't, that's been happening the whole time. So with that said, uh, you get this great moment where obviously Petra, now having all these memories of like Subaru and all that from Arc 4, or rather, the specific point of Arc 4, he misses, or well, rather, she misses her a whole lot. So, jumps into her arms, beautiful little hug. It's great. And then we get our final chapter, very simple, everybody talking to each other, all these great reactions from Rem, being like, I don't think I was that familiar with Petra and all that, right? And even Melee's like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck is going on, right? But they all discuss the sort of plan. We learn more about what the fuck Otto is doing. Otto is a menace right now, right? He's not getting into like one-on-one fights, but he is stopping Al's group from progressing. Anytime they take a moment to rest, nah, here's the animals, right? They're gonna keep you up, right? Water and food contaminated because he's essentially having the animals do that, right? Everything that they are like trying to just essentially work around and be like, oh yeah, we can make it to where we need to go and we'll be healthy that whole time. Nope. Otto is fucking with them real hard. And especially because thanks to Old Man Rum, they know how to like partially counteract this, right? They know what's going on with Al and they know, okay, he has some means to kind of loop himself here a little bit. So this is not looking good for Al, right? I don't know what bullshit he's going to pull out because I don't think we're going to, end too quickly here with all the stuff going on. But I don't know what bullshit he's going to pull out, but he's going to have to pull out something out of his ass, right? And then we get our final scene with Felt and Heinkel, where Felt is really just laying into Heinkel with all these like comments and all that sort of shit. Like he almost tries to threaten her at first, but she kicks him off and just like fucking berates him and everything. And it's just like, man, ooh, he is not having a great time. But after she gets done, berating him and everything, she lays the absolute bombshell down of not only was he responsible essentially for what happened with Teresia, but his mother too. Like Luana or whatever. The fact that she fell asleep, that was also on him. Right? Now we don't know the details of that yet, but that is like insane to drop as a cliffhanger. Because it's now like, oh, okay, Reinhard, not to blame him, right? He's a kid at that point. It's whatever. But whatever the fuck is going on, he is also partially responsible for this entire family just falling apart, which is crazy coming from the guy who is the absolute strongest out of, you know, all of them. But that's it. Tepe leaves us on a massive cliffhanger and a huge development for the character that we were not expecting at this current moment. And I love it. I'm glad we actually get to receive this with the volume. Genuinely, right now, Arc 9 is my second favorite. It could very easily change, it could go lower, right? But at the current moment, everything from Arc 9 has been fantastic. I have been so fucking excited to read. And it's not just bias towards the Rem stuff. Obviously, there is some bias there, but that's to be expected. It's my favorite character. Of course, there is. But, like, just everything that's happened so far, all this shit has been absolutely phenomenal. So, right now, I think it's fair to say second favorite. We'll see where it goes when it's done. Obviously, it might be lower than Arc 5 or something like that, but very easily could just be the second best out of everything we've gotten so far. Hooray, proper outro time, popper. Well, we're doing a popper outro. I don't know what that implies at all, but that. All right. Well, thank you all for being so patient with this review and everything. Apologies on the wait for it, of course. I didn't intend to take this long, but I mean, shit. I was working on the Act 2 stuff, and those horses, man. Those fucking horses. But we're here. We get to do this properly and everything. I hope you all enjoyed. Again, I mean, I'm releasing this earlier than I usually do in a certain sense. I sometimes release videos on Fridays, but absolutely I wanted to aim for a Friday for this, just to kind of make up for a little bit of how long it took. But I'm glad we got it done. I'm glad I got to speak about this volume, of course, because, I mean, fucking, you know why. I'm like making sure my hand's in the right direction. You know why. But, yeah, this was great. I'm very happy to have this done. And, again, I hope you all enjoyed it. not much else to say. Obviously, you know, I had the update video, so we all know what's coming and everything. But there is the big thing, of course, of Act 2 of A Demon's Tale on Sunday. Very much recommend checking it out, right? I mean, it's my own personal story. I don't usually show my stuff, but this is something that I've been working on for fucking years, right? This story has been in development for a very long while. So I do love, you know, creating for it, whether it's art or concepts or outlines or just the writing, you know. So there's a lot of love put into it, right? If you're interested, feel free, right? You can always jump in from Act 1, just right from Chapter 1. A little bit rougher at the start, but I mean, I actually am thinking about potentially going back and fixing up some of that. So, hey, I'll let you all know on that. Or, as soon as Act 2 drops, you could just try it out from there, right? I will note there's going to be obvious spoiler sort of stuff if you do that, because it'll just outright mention some things. But that's all right, right? I'm very open to the idea that anybody can jump into this sort of story at some point, get interested, and then go back to properly read it, right? I think that can work out for any series for the most part, and for mine personally, I think that works out, right? So feel free. I will note, if you are starting like Act 1 with that whole sort of thing, I will say, take it at your own pace. I mean, you should in general, but especially for that, take it at your own pace. Please do not try and finish Act 1 like before Act 2 comes out. You know, fittingly, this is a ReZero review, so I get to bring this up. One of the chapters in Act 1, and I'm only saying one, is like longer than the Teresia chapter from Arc 5. I'm not saying that to like boast or anything about it. I'm just saying that in a sense of note how much time you're spending on it, right? That's one chapter out of 118. And a lot of chapters around that one are pretty damn long. So, like, they're not nearly as long as that, but they're pretty damn long. So, I'm just saying, some of the early chapters might be shorter, but it'll take some time. So if you're going to start with Act 1, take it at your own pace. You should anyways, but absolutely, if you're trying to just like, oh, I want to catch up to Act 2 and see what's going on there, take it at your own pace, right? Just chill with it, have fun, enjoy the story, right? If you want to, you know, potentially go a little bit harder with it, you can. I'm just saying, you know, in moderation. Just take it in moderation. I don't recommend rushing through, because that's a lot. That's a lot to do in like 2 days, right? And not even like properly 2 days, because it's like 12 p.m. EST that it's gonna drop on Sunday. So barely that, right? But with that said, very excited to show all that off. Honestly, Act 2 is gonna be fun, because I mentioned this before. The chapter lengths in there are a lot more consistent, right? I've gotten a lot better with writing, and I've hit this stride where typically I'm at a 6 to 9 like thousand word count in there, right? So very happy about that. You know, we used to be at a point very early on where it would be like 1,000 to 3,000, right? And I think the second half of Act 1, I got a lot better at going higher than that, but there were moments where I got smaller. But Act 2, very consistently big word count, a lot packed into each chapter. Really love that, right? Only one of them is like below that, and just barely. It's like 4,000, right? So still pretty damn good. That said though, you know, that if you're interested in checking that out. Also, the Rumble end of the year stuff, voting, all that. For those who don't know, we do a Rumble at the end of the year. Just a fun little event. It's very silly. It's like fictional characters in WWE, and you know, you get to see who's the champion. It's a fun event. We have a shit ton of just like silly little moments in there every single year, right? And it's an absolute blast. And this time around, as well as every following time after this, right? we are going to be holding a poll where you can just vote for who you want in there. You vote for 15 characters, and on both polls, because there's a male and there's a female one, you vote for 15 characters, and the top 30, or maybe not top 30, but rather like top 20 or so, something around that range, 20 to 25, get to make it in. And then those that were voted for that didn't make it in, keep their votes into next year, so they actually have an advantage over other characters next year. If you're interested in that though, feel free to vote. There's all sorts of characters in there from fucking everything, right? And I've wanted to add even more, but I feel like we're gonna reach a point where it's so late that I shouldn't. So I will think on if I want to add more. I will keep you all notified. My cutoff point for myself doing that is going to be like mid-August, right? Because the poll for that, I should point out, closes October 1st, right? October 1st, it's done. I get everything ready for the end of the year. That's it, right? So, like I said, if you're interested, vote. Whole ton of characters there. There's obviously going to be a card. There might have already been a card. I don't know where I'll put it, but it'll also be in the description. So if you just go to the description, it'll be down there. Anyways, that's about it for this video. Again, we already did the update video. I don't have to speak too much on everything. That's it, right? I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to properly get this review done and everything. I'm very happy at the moment. You know, the channel icon is going to change out of nowhere, and I think that's the main reason I'm happy, because I finally get to do Act 2. This is something I've been waiting for a while now, and this will be fun. This will be very fun. But in general, everything here has been fun. So, with that said, let's end off. So, take care. Have yourselves a nice night. Stay safe, and I will see you all in the next video. Farewell, friends.